Welcome, everyone. Okay. New intro.
We're going to the mountains twice.
Yeah. That was, I worked all week on that intro. I said, let me not screw this up. And sure enough, I did. But
good,
they revamped the whole system this week. I don't know if they were planning along with me. So I don't know what happened there. But I want to welcome you guys to the July 9th edition of the Signals from Mars live stream, brought to you by the Mars Attacks podcast. Joining me is Metal Tim Henderson from Bravewords. I am thrilled beyond belief to have you on here, and I welcome you to the show. How are you doing, sir?
I'm celebrating Bon Scott's 75th birthday today.
Awesome. That should be an international holiday.
Absolutely. No, I'm honored to be on here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's awesome. I had Bob Now Banding on a few weeks ago. Bob is someone that, much like yourself, because I see a lot of parallels and different things that you guys have done over the years, maybe not the same exact path, but I think that what you have done with Bravewords and, you know, with everything you've done along the years is very important to metalheads around the world. I found it very interesting reading, you know, what you do have on your site about yourself. You kind of took up the metal flag in a decade where I constantly hear people say metal sucked in the 90s. Metal was dead in the 90s. But you said, screw all this. You decided to forge ahead with your own path then. You didn't let naysayers, it seems, tell you that the form of music that you love was gone. What was the moment that you said, you know what, screw all these other people, I'm just going to do this?
Well, Metal Sucks actually wasn't born in 1994. That's a total dig, and I love those guys. But wow, no, you're exactly right, because Bravewords, the actual magazine, was born in 1994.
Correct.
And that's when so many bands just got, I hate saying this because I love a lot of the bands that they were killed by grunge. So I love Pearl Jam, I love Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. It was, I don't know, it was a really interesting era, but you're right. There was still like a ton of metalheads that were still there. No matter like the way the industry was changing, like people still wanted to wave the horns. And I went from Meat Magazine in Toronto to launching this thing in 1994 with Martin, and it worked, and the fans just loved it. It rolled out across Canada and then to 40 countries, like during an era where heavy metal wasn't like the most popular. You have to keep in mind, especially where you sit, like the scene in North America versus Europe. Especially back then, it was like night and day, right? So it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because a year before that, I guess 93, maybe 92, is when I did my first kind of tryout with all this stuff. I was in college radio, you know, I had my own show, you know, and a lot of the bands, I was getting feedback from them saying, hey, you know, we just can't get across here. And I was seeing bands like Halloween who were still putting out albums in Europe, but couldn't release anything in the States. I was having to buy albums by them, by a group like Warrior Soul, who was a New York band. I was from New Jersey, and I couldn't even get their albums in the States. I'd have to buy them on import for $35 because Music for Nations was the only label that was willing to put their music out. So it was, I mean, I don't want to say, you know, I've never subscribed to the whole that decade sucked, because there was still good music that was coming out. I think you could look at a band like Testament, for example, who, as the years went on, they got heavier and heavier, up until, say, Formation of Damnation. There were other bands that, whether you're fully into their eras of music or not, I know Anthrax is doing their whole 40th anniversary documentary that they're releasing little by little. I was a huge fan of the John Bush era. Love the Joey stuff, but still love that John Bush stuff as well. So I think that if people just discard that decade, they're missing out on a lot of good music as well.
But there's an important point, because when I launched Bravewords, I had just started at HMV Canada as a buyer, and we built it up, me and my team. I'm not going to take full credit for this because there was a bunch of wonderful people around me, to like $1 million metal section in the 90s.
Right.
So it wasn't just you and me and like a pool. Like there was a huge community.
Yeah.
So, and it grew until now, right?
Right. And even still, I mean, if you really want to analyze it, you look at, the resurgence of vinyl, or even now cassettes being made and things like that. How much of that is still being driven by metal fans or hard rock fans that are really the diehards that are still going out and searching? I want the limited edition splatter vinyl of, whatever album. So I think metal fans have shown that over the years, they're willing to support bands that they love more than maybe other forms of music.
When I was, as I said, so 94, let's put everything in perspective here. So Bravewords, the little fanzine, although I love Gene Simmons, not the biggest Kiss fan or Gene fan, but he always called fanzines baby magazines. So I look at the old issues of Bravewords, all the gray stock, and we can get into that later. It was, you know what I mean? Like it went from like that era of like little baby magazines and exploding. Like we just like, it was incredible, the whole growth.
Yeah. What drove you to do the fanzine? Was there any other fanzine that influenced you? Was it the need that you felt that there was nothing in your area that dealt with the subject matter?
I left Meat Magazine, and and not that I'm a control freak. I just thought that like there was a void, and I guess started to build this thing, and it just like went from there. It was, and then I rolled it out to, there was like 100 stores at HMV Canada. We printed 200 copies of Bravewords #1, sold out within like a couple of weeks, and everyone embraced it because they were desperate for like real heavy metal.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. And you mentioned before that you connected with Martin Popoff back then. What was your first impression of Martin, and why have you been able to remain, for almost 30 years? You guys have, still been a part of this and had a good enough friendship to be able to keep, Bravewords together and to do what each one of you do.
Well, it was a friendship that turned into like a brotherhood, because he had a printing company. And when Bravewords, I had this idea to kind of like build this brand new magazine, he was able to print it, or help me print it. And it went from there. Like he was instrumental in terms of editing and not necessarily guiding me. Like I was the one that was kind of like building everything, but behind the scenes, Martin was always there, and he's still there. And it's remarkable to see what he's done in his career. Like it's unbelievable.
Absolutely
unbelievable.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's nobody on the planet that can sit there and listen to a record and review it within like 10 minutes, because I sit there like in a week to review a record, and this guy comes out with his first book of all reviews, and I'm like, really, dude? Like, where are you from? What the fuck?
Right. Yeah, that's troubling when you sit there and you just, the wheels are spinning continuously, nothing is coming out, but yet
he's a genius. He really is a genius.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, he has the following that he has for a reason. I mean, his books are good. His books are in depth. I can't tell you how many, not only people that I speak to that listen to my show, but other podcasters behind the scenes that talk about, hey, have you checked out Martin's latest book? What do you think about, this one where he's talking about this, so I truly think there's, there's like a select number of people that have really helped. I mean, I talk a lot about bands helping create the soundtrack of your life, where you kind of piece together different moments of your life based upon different songs that you heard, but I do think that there are people on the flip side as well, journalists and people that have done, like yourself, start Bravewords, to also help feed other parts of that sort of soundtrack. Sometimes you need a backdrop to that soundtrack. You need to be able to, go to a different, authority or get lost in a book, get lost in a website, reading the information that you have. For me as a kid, it was Eddie Trunk. I was 12, 13 years old, and there was this guy at midnight that would only come on for 5 minutes. I've got the metal news, and I'm like, wow, there's another music nerd out there like me that actually I can find out about, what this band is doing, what that other band is doing. And then little by little, the various magazines started coming up that weren't Circus, weren't Rip, they were outside of the box. When those magazines started covering Green Day and Pearl Jam and stuff like that, there were other magazines that were still kind of true to what the rest of us loved. So I think that's why you guys slot into this. And it's so important to fans to have, stuff like Bravewords to turn to, or stuff like one of Martin's books to turn to when they want to find out about a band, or, again, read any reviews on an album that Martin has done over the years. So.
No, he was really instrumental. Like, I'm not going to, I've had a team, and half the team have been with me since 1994. That's what's pretty crazy. So,
right.
Martin, we all have our, you know what I mean? Like our mission caps.
Sure.
And I had mine. He had his, and all the writers and everything. No, it really is a beautiful thing. It's kind of truly come together. The whole internet thing. It was really funny when my the people that were laying at the magazine tried to convince me to do this thing called a website. And I'm like, really? What's this website thing? So It took a year to launch bravewords.com. But we had a great run magazine wise. Keep in mind also that we are from a country that's only 30 million people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of issues around the fact that we are from that small in terms of economics.
Right.
And we were able to kind of spread the word, but also based and influenced by magazines like Kerrang and Burn,
mm-hmm.
right? And a couple of the US magazines at the same time. So yeah, it's been a wonderful ride.
Awesome. Let's flip things back a little further, because obviously you were hugely into music to want to do this to begin with. What was the first thing that you heard that kind of piqued your interest and said, I want to find out a little bit more about this band? This band has hooked me onto my latest passion.
Well, I'm 54.
Okay.
And I had an uncle, my Uncle Rick, that actually kind of fed me this music called acid rock when I was in the 70s. So,
right.
And sadly he passed, but a huge influence. So bands like Purple and Cream and Led Zeppelin and everything, that's where that seed was truly planted. Even more mainstream stuff like the Moody Blues and the Doobie Brothers, right? It's all rock and roll at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's where it happened. But because I didn't have any siblings, it really, strangely enough, because radio at the time in the late 70s and the early 80s, you had to really get to the point where it was this niche programming late at night, midnight, to play these like hour, you know what I mean? So you would hear you would hear Venom. Well, in my case, I would hear Anvil, Razor, Exciter at midnight, and I'm still like a little kid. I have to go to go to school the next day. So those son of a bitches, come on, give me a break. So that was really like the presence.
Yeah. For me, again, I mentioned Eddie Trunk would come on Fridays. There was a show called Metal Mania, hosted by Cheryl Richards, was her name, and Eddie would just come in periodically. Well, for a few minutes, and then slowly over the years, he ended up taking over the show. But outside of that, I mean, that was a Friday night show that started at 11 p.m. It was from 11 to 1. And if not, I remember stations out of New York. I mean, you wouldn't hear Black Sabbath on the radio. Maybe you'd hear Paranoid. Exactly. You wouldn't hear, it was funny, after 10 o'clock, I would remember hearing Love Bites by Judas Priest, but it had to be after 10 o'clock at night. Before 10 o'clock at night, you would hear maybe Living After Midnight if you were lucky, for as much as, and this is something that I talk to Mark Striegel about from time to time, and he actually sends his regards. I think that the turning point for a lot of this stuff, honestly, and I know a lot of people may crap on me for this, is Metallica's Black Album, because I think Metallica's Black Album became such a commercial hit that it kind of opened doors for hearing War Pigs every hour, hearing Iron Man, 10 times a day, hearing Run to the Hills and Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden all of a sudden on stations that would come nowhere near that stuff, at least in the New York, New Jersey area. That's how it was for us. We obviously had college radio like WSOU that played metal all the time, but for commercial radio to start to play a lot of this stuff, I personally point to the Black Album and just how massive it was for that. What do you think the turning point was?
Well, dude, honestly, way before that, we heard Appetite for Destruction and Epic from Faith No More. And I remember radio stations really struggling, because I'm friends with a lot of the programmers, and they were struggling to put Welcome to the Jungle out there. So that was way before the Black Album, right?
No, you're right. You're right.
That was really daring stuff. The Black Albums, it's well, and the fact that it's coming out as this massive, right? You know what I mean? Like what's in September, I guess. So no, there was. I think there was a lot of more daring things before Enter Sandman. And as a Metallica fan, come on, give me a break. When you heard that, it was like, wow. But I will say, because I was still with Meat Magazine at the time, I remember Drew Masters, my mentor, we went to Warner up here in Canada, in Toronto, and we were given the advance cassette to the Black Album. We sat in his car outside the building and listened to that whole thing from start to finish. And I, to my grave, I walked out of the car trembling. It was so good. And keep in mind, I'm a thrash guy, I'm a black metal guy, I'm a death metal guy, but I still think it's a great, I don't know how, let's not start comparing.
Right.
Well, the first three records are the first three records. To be honest, I agree. Right? But the Black Album is just like this great snapshot of this amazing band that is going to take over the world. What I love about Metallica, because I remember buying Kill 'Em All as like a UK pressing and like saving up my allowance or whatever, like all my stupid little fucking jobs, and finally buying it and putting it on cassette. Because I don't know if you see my photos where you'd only touch the vinyl once and record it, and sitting in the hallway listening to Kill 'Em All, and nobody would be around me. It's like the chicks didn't give a shit or whatever. Like, and going from that little point to where they are the biggest, literally the biggest band on the planet. Right. I love wearing that flag, and you wear it too. We all wear it, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm, it's like absolutely. They're bigger than you two. They're bigger than all the bullshit, crappy stuff we hear from the States. They're the biggest. They could play every place on the planet.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, I
can go to sleep at night thinking that.
I actually got to see them. I guess it's what, the 30th anniversary. For the 25th anniversary, they did a festival run, and they did the album in its entirety. And I got to see one of those shows here in Madrid, and it was right next to a military barracks. And it was amazing to see just all of the soldiers out of their windows. There was already, whether you believe what the promoter said or not, they said apparently there was 66,000 people in there watching them. But there were all these people that were just hanging out of windows from that military barracks, just watching the entire show. And that was the second of 2 nights. And no one else got that response. And no one else filled that whole area up where they were playing that same way. Everyone showed up for Metallica at the end. So it was impressive. And I sometimes, and I mentioned this to you in an email the other day, I write stuff up on social media, and then I'm like, I delete a lot of it because I'm like, yeah, I don't need the drama. But I hate when I see people, for example, say, oh, well, you guys will post, it's the whatever anniversary, or, this is the anniversary of the album going 18 times platinum or whatever. And people will respond, oh, that's the album where they sold out. And I'm thinking, well, do you prefer that Shania Twain or Michael Jackson is the #1 selling album of all time? As you said, it's not Master of Puppets, it's not Ride the Lightning, but it's still a metal band to say, hey, it may not be my favorite album by the band, but I'm proud that it's a metal band as opposed to something else.
And I talked to Lars for that particular record for Meat Magazine. Mm-hmm. So all these fans, and I get it. Come on, give me a break. Would I rather put on Enter Sandman or Seek and Destroy? Like right. Let's call a spade a spade. But when you sit there and talk to these guys, and everyone has to grow, I think we all, whether you're working or playing, like you just grow. And right. They grew. And I'm not saying anything that they've done, well, maybe 1 or 2 records, but nothing compares to that. But when you right. talk to the actual musician that built that, it's monumental. It was, and to your point, it crossed over. It sold millions of records. It helped heavy metal.
Yes.
That's the key. Yeah. That's the key. It maybe introduced a lot of people to like, oh, wow, I love Enter Sandman. Who is this band? Mm-hmm. And they, you know what? And hopefully they go backwards, especially going forwards, because we know what that happened.
Yeah, no, that's my exact point. I mean, if anything, and even whether you like, nowadays you have things like baby metal, you have things that are on the poppier side where, I get it. Diehard metal fans will sit there and say, oh, I hate this stuff. It's garbage. It's crap. But somewhere there's a kid that's watching that for the first time and saying, hey, I like the sound of these guitars. What else sounds like this? And they do that dive in the rabbit hole, and they come across a Ride the Lightning, or they come across a, Seasons in the Abyss or whatever. And it opens up the door, whether it's whether that ends up being your favorite band or not. I think, that album did a tremendous thing, like Appetite for Destruction, as you mentioned before, to just kick down the door and welcome a lot of people. Let's not forget that the difference between, or at least in my opinion, between a platinum selling album and a gold selling album back in the day was being able to cross over, because your diehards were still going to buy an album regardless. But getting over to that casual fan, getting over to that kid that was being turned on to a band for the first time, you needed to make that bridge. If not, you weren't selling what these bands were selling.
You know what? Just as a music fan, you just need to kind of step back and just look at like the forest from the trees, right?
Right.
You might be introduced to this particular record, and then you're going to Google it. Now you can Google it. Back then, when I was sitting in my high school, I wasn't fucking Googling anything. Now you can actually Google it and put in the Black Album or whatever record and go, yeah, if you like this, then you're probably going to like this more.
Right.
Right. So it's
absolutely.
I don't know. It's as old fucks, I can call myself that. It's just like just relax and just enjoy the moment and figure it out. I think these days is like these are the best days and the easiest time for people as music fans to figure it out. It hasn't gotten any more easier to go to YouTube, to go to Wikipedia or wherever, whatever website you live and breathe in, because you're hearing from people like you and me and a lot of more younger people than elders, but it is what it is. I just know when I walked out of that car listening to the Black Album, I was really sold. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was amazing. I saw the shows. I was in the pit at a couple of shows, and that's where Lars and James wanted to go, and it is what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting that in hindsight, a lot of people don't give them the credit maybe for having that vision. For as much as people dump on Lars now for his playing, I think a lot of people don't go back and, check out a Ride the Lightning or Kill 'Em All or any of those Force 4 albums with regards to his drumming and realize where metal was at that time, where you didn't have, a lot of the modern day players who grew up on him or a Dave Lombardo. So obviously the next generation is going to push the envelope. But at that time, the guy's laying the foundation. I think maybe he doesn't get enough credit for that.
Okay, let's plug Bob Nalbandian again, because I had him on Streaming for Vengeance a couple of weeks ago. And if you watch like the Bay Area Godfathers thing, and with Lars is all over, and Bob wasn't just like an interviewer, he was like hanging out at his house. You know what I mean? And like just listening to Lars, just like I did, I'm like, give me a fucking break. Like this guy, he knows his shit. He's been there, done that, and it's as a metal fan, I just love hearing about the history. I thought it was really funny. I asked Lars a long time ago, because we all know the whole Diamond Head thing. And I asked him this one question, like, are you still following Diamond Head and Saxon and all the new wave of British heavy metal stuff?
Right.
He was like, fuck no. Like, whatever. Like, it's not that he was like dissing them. It's just like that was part of his past, and his future is what we hear now. So are we going to hear like a new Diamond Head cover on Garage Days #3 or whatever? No. It's just like people grow. We're fucking old. He's old.
Yeah.
We don't act old. You watch him drumming. I just like admire. Like it's. I have such an admiration for him. Like it's awesome. Yeah.
Would you consider that one of your landmark interviews, being able to interview him then for the Black Album? Or are there any other interviews that maybe you've had with him or someone else over the years that you would say, hey, I'm really proud of this one or this other one?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. No, obviously. The AC/DC interviews I've had were second to none. Interviewing like Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. There's just like it's pretty crazy, because people ask me if you're gonna do a book, blah 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 blah. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do a book. The only way I'm gonna do a book is if I can actually sit there and like just the way my head works, I'm like, okay, let's just do it from A to Z. So what are the A bands? What are the B bands? And blah, 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 blah. So I have no idea. I had a great interview with Brian Johnson. And he called me a see you next Tuesday. joking because I was talking about a Geordie reunion.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like I have so many examples. I don't like, it's like the Venom guys. Like, I don't know. It's keep in mind, not that this is like a brag. Like, I've been doing this. I'm pushing 60, so I've been there, done that. I've been really blessed to meet people like Slayer and Candlemass and Metal Church and Behemoth and you name it. It's like there's a ton of great interviews and bonds and beautiful things. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question, but really, like, to talk to Angus and Malcolm, that might have been like one of my peak highlights.
Gotcha. Okay. Was there ever someone that you didn't get to interview that maybe passed away that you know, after they died, you said, shit, that was the one that kind of got away?
You know what? Given all the Motorhead stuff, I never met Filthy or Fast Eddie. Those two guys would have been like absolutely legendary. Wow. Bon, I was way too young. Yeah, no, there's I've been really blessed to actually meet, just because of timing. There's like the odd little thing, the odd little person. My short list to meet would easily be Robert Plant, McCartney. I would love to meet the Floyd guys. I know I'm sounding really old here but I really think that like those are like the pillars of where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I answering the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes complete sense, because I think a lot of people get lost, and you said it before, it's all rock, isn't it? At the end of the day, I think people get lost on placing nice little labels on things where, after all, if it's within the rock genre and it moves you, does it really need to be, you know, well, it's not metal because it doesn't have this or it doesn't have that. You know, I think too many people have gotten caught up in needing to follow all these rules for a kind of music that was built out of rebellion. Quite the opposite. You know, it was a fuck everything, this is what I'm going to do mentality. And now it's like, well, we have to follow these 30 rules. What? It's not on the list. You're no longer metal. I'm sorry. You can't get into the club. So I get what you're saying when you're talking about McCartney and Floyd and, you know, all these people, because without them, we wouldn't be where we are in 2021. So
it's amazing. My demographic, Google Analytics, is so wide. It's when we report on whatever you want to call this. So don't like rage at me, the heritage acts, whether it be like Hanks or Cream or, you know what I mean? It had like the riffs started somewhere. The Who, the Stones, whenever we report on all this stuff, it gets a huge reaction. So I love the fact that, and just like as an overall kind of like scenario with Bravewords, it's old school, it's black metal, and it's hair metal, and like I just think if you're a music fan, you're a fucking idiot if you don't like go back and really respect the roots of the Yardbirds and Cream, and then jump to, obviously, like everyone obviously jumps to the whole Sabbath and Purple and everything, and the James Gang, and no, Bravewords kind of puts it all together. And I see that with our numbers, and I see that with our demographic. And I'm actually most proud of the fact that our demographic, it's not a sausage party anymore. It's almost half and half.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
No, that really is awesome.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like we would go to shows and it would be like, oh my God, I want to come here. I want to watch the band and get laid. I'm like, I'm not getting laid because there's no chicks here. No, it's, you know what I mean? I'm joking, but it's a great thing that it's like a 50-50 split. So, but the most important thing is like, there's a heavy metal, hard rock, heavy metal tree. And I'm not going to sit here and argue with, I'm not going to say that, yeah, the Yardbirds are heavy metal. No, they weren't, but they were, you know what the greatest example is when someone dies. So when Alvin Lee from 10 years after died a couple of years ago, all these people, Slash and like everyone piped in. Obviously, the death is horrific, but the beauty is the fact that like all these artists are like, oh my God, that's how I learned how to play guitar. And everyone goes, who's Alvin Lee? Oh, I want to change the world. Oh, I know that song. I've heard it. My dad played it for me or whatever. Right. So that's the beauty. It all connects. Right.
Yeah, I've had many a conversation. I know you're not the biggest Kiss fan, but I've had many a conversation.
No, I'm not the biggest Kiss fan. It's kind of a generation thing. So I was just too young to. Gotcha. My first Kiss record was the 12-inch of "I Was Made for Loving You," just because I was only like 10 years old. So no, I love Kiss. Okay, but I love Ace's stuff better.
So. It's funny though, because I've had conversations with friends of mine that are in black metal bands, and I hate Kiss. They've never added anything to this, and they've never added anything to that. And I'll bring up, hey, have you ever listened to a band called Celtic Frost? Have you listened to Thomas Gabriel? He's playing in Iceman because he's a huge Kiss fan, and he's wearing Kiss t-shirts all the time. And damn it, now the guy's name slips my mind. The guy that was at the festival that ran up with the guitar and fell face first. Abath, is it?
Yeah, Immortal.
Okay. Right. So all of these guys are huge fans of that stuff. And it's funny that, younger kids will say, oh, well, that's not, no, but that was similar to the Alvin Lee reference you made. No, that actually helped Slash, that helped other people pick up the guitar and give you what you got to hear and what you knew about, what turned you on to Slash years later. Without that stepping stone, without Alvin Lee, without 10 years after, without The Who, without the Kinks, all the bands that you mentioned, we wouldn't be where we are today. I think that a lot of that, like you're saying, a lot of that respect is missing to go back and even if you don't like the stuff, at least give it the reverence that it deserves. And yeah, I see that Rob Rowe keeps chiming in about Ace. For my money, nothing that neither Ace nor Kiss has released past Trouble Walking is better than that album. That's just my opinion. But I know a lot of people love his 78 solo album. Trouble Walking is where it's at for me. Kind of like what you're saying. It was beginning of the 90s, was a specific point in time in my life. So there's that emotional connection to that album.
Martin and I, we, because Ace did, I'm trying to remember the tour a couple of years ago, right? Probably like 10 years ago. And it was just on, he was just, like, you know what? He has more fire than Kiss. That's just, that's what I felt. It was surreal to meet him. But the Fraley's Comet record, just like, wow. Just as you say, Trouble Walking, like it's just like heavy riffs. He just has it down. He just, I don't know. It's I don't know. You can't compare the two. You really can't.
Right.
And you know what the worst thing is, because Gene and Paul, they're doing this whole world tour thing, and in the back of their head, Ace is going to help us sell more tickets. Right? It's true. It's true. Right? I saw those last shows, like the reunion shows, but I don't really care about watching like the current reunion shows. But I know that Gene and Paul are just, and whether or not Ace wants to do it, I know that Peter's kind of in his own little world apparently, but I just think that if Gene and Paul would put their heads together and just kind of renegotiate with Ace, it would just elevate that whole thing. It would put the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I'm fingers crossed that I think if they do call it quits at, I was about to say Shea Stadium. Shea Stadium is a parking lot now, but at Citibank Stadium in New York, if that's their last hurrah, that they do whatever it takes to at least get Ace and Peter involved somehow. Now, I know that money was probably the biggest issue there, but I think that you have to do what you need to do for the fans to at least kind of wrap things up the right way.
No, absolutely.
So, you talked about Metal Sucks before. Obviously, Bravewords and Blabbermouth have been the big two for the longest time. And then you've had, Metal Injection and Metal Sucks and all these other sites that have come up over the last decade or so. Have you ever felt that there was a rivalry between any of the sites at all, or have you felt the opposite, where it's been a brotherhood, that there was enough to go around for everyone?
What's the right answer here?
Is this
I wouldn't say there's a brotherhood. There should be, because the metal community is it's growing, obviously, and it's this big, and I think we should all be kind of bounding together, and we all have our little mission statements.
Sure.
No, I wouldn't say that there's a brotherhood, but I really don't have much connection with those other sites. I really don't visit them very often. I'm way too busy every day just doing it's insanely busy. So the fact of me to travel around to do other things, I respect that what they do. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I will say when I go to Europe and visit these festivals, and I see all the magazines and all the peeps and everyone just getting along and cheersing together, I would really love that to happen on these shores. And I don't see it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I saw a meme the other day. I forget where it was posted. It said, discussion about a band's lineup, and it was all these people fighting with one another. And then it said, discussion about a band's discography, and it was 10 people at a table sitting calmly and discussing things. So as you're talking, that's what's kind of going through my head, where it should be the one as opposed to the other, but for whatever reason, for what you're telling me, and I get it, it's very busy to keep up with what you have going on. I tried my foray into trying to do that with podcasting. I tried to start a site where, I realized at this point it's ridiculous, but back when I stepped into it and tried to report on interviews and stuff like that, it consumed the entire day, just to do between 80 to 200 posts, or just to look up information on 80 to 200 different shows, what they were doing. So a lot of times I think people don't realize what it's like to sift first through the information, realize what's pertinent enough to go on your site, and then ultimately put it on the site. So with all that going on, your site is obviously going to be the priority. So checking out what others are doing, or, if you're trying to play nice per se, and maybe there isn't the same feeling back, I get that you're going to continue to focus on your own stuff.
I think bands need to realize that they're not a big fish. They're an average fish, because every day I see 100 average fish, and you need to figure out your the plan to build your career, your marketing plan. I hear so many bands that are just they're just pumping money into recording and making it sound the best, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. And what do you have left over to actually tell people about it?
Right.
And I hear from bands, I'm like, oh, there's nothing. Well, then how the fucking flying fuck are you going to tell people about it?
Right.
Come on, give me a break. You got to just it has to be a master plan.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. A great recording, a great marketing plan, just a great future.
Yeah. What did we talk about before? Kill 'Em All. Does Kill 'Em All have the sound of the Black Album, or anything that was released, that's been released now, that's brick walled, or even now that less albums are being brick walled, thankfully? It doesn't have that production. It doesn't have that sound, but it has the songs, and they had someone to help steer that ship to get them to the masses. Where I think you're right with that assessment, where the money isn't invested in the right place to actually help. Like at the end of the day, it's a job like anything else. If you're not buying the right tools for the job, you're not going to get the job done.
Right. Do you really need to to the hysteria thing?
Mm. Right.
Right. You need to spend and I love Dave, but I think Megadeth have spent a lot more time in the studio than they have as well. So go back to the garage. Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
Really, you need to sit there and perfect things and for months on end. Come on, keep it raw, keep it real.
Right. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of overthinking taking place.
Yeah.
For someone like myself who started in the whole podcast avenue 12 years ago, how has podcasting influenced what you guys have done with the site?
Oh, the whole streaming for vengeance thing. Wow. I hate it. No, because I'm from the get-go, I was interviewing people in person.
Right.
And now because of COVID and everything, it's not like I'm not loving this interview, but there's a disconnect. There's, you know what I mean? I can't cheers you, can't shake your fucking hand. We were able to get the actual name Streaming for Vengeance because I've had a relationship with Judas Priest for a long time. And Jane Andrews, their manager, said, "Yeah, go for it, Tim." So no, we've ran with it, but I just can't wait just to talk to people like yourself in person and go to the bar on your tab and you can just feed me drinks all night. I'm totally joking.
So, I mean, do you see that evolving into something else afterwards? Could you see that evolving to doing more of a in-person live streaming once you can get back out to shows and interview people that way? Or do you just envision maybe addressing that a different way once everything kind of gets back to semblance of normalcy?
No, I think I think vaccines is a really important thing, whether you're an anti-vaxxer or not. That's going to play a big part. We're weeks into actually getting back to normal here in Canada. And I think it'll be the best of both worlds. It'll be 80-20.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you envision post the pandemic? Do you envision something specific that you guys want to do with Bravewords that maybe you haven't done before? I mean, is there a silver lining out of all of this where once this gets back to normal, you guys want to try certain things that maybe you haven't in the past as a result?
You know what the result is after this? Is every band on the fucking planet is going to be releasing records and we're going to be covering them.
Okay.
Seriously. You name the band, we've already reported on Saxon, Megadeth, every band on the planet, because they now know that they can tour.
Right. Yeah, a lot of bands have been holding on to stuff.
Yeah.
Since before this happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get it. We're talking about different festivals and stuff, and of course a lot of people know my connection to Mark Striegel. One of the things that he always talks about is going up to Heavy Montreal, where he mentioned he runs into you pretty much every time that he goes up. Do you see a future for Heavy Montreal after all this clears up? Do you think there will be something that takes its place? What's your, best guess?
No, I don't see Heavy Montreal coming back anytime soon.
Okay.
Heavy Toronto was, it was only a couple of shows, a couple of years. I find that really hard to say, and I'm not speaking for them at all. I hope it can come back. But like, I think any festival in North America, it's going to be a long time coming. I know the U.S. is a different story than up here,
Right.
but in terms of like a big festival that's going to draw like 30,000-40,000 people, that's going to be a while.
Yeah. Okay. We were kind of talking off air about this, about how festivals that festivals that have made it someplace here have been because they've been kind of grassroots organizations where they've been fans, kind of like what you described before with Bravewords, how you guys came together, you and Martin and your team, and did it for a love of the music. These festivals are still around for 20 years because of that, where, you know, I think in other cases there have been big conglomerates or big, you know, corporations where we don't see the instant success, so we're pulling the plug, we're pulling our money, so there goes the festival. Could you envision something like that happening in Canada, where similar to like a Vakken? Vakken is a perfect example of that as well, where there could be, you know, a grassroots organization that gets together, a bunch of metal fans, and just decide to build something slowly over the years.
We tried to do it with the Bravewords 6-pack weekend, and that was in the 90s. And yeah, there was a reason why we went down to the States, because Canada is a different beast. The problem is that we're just way too spread out, right?
Right.
The community is just like we're so vast, and hopefully we can all come together to do something. But as I say, Heavy Toronto failed. Heavy Montreal, and that's really the mecca of like heavy metal in Canada,
right?
And sadly enough, like that they were struggling.
Okay, that's a shame. I wasn't aware of that. You know, given, I mean, a lot of this is selling an image. You know, so the image that they were selling, I think, was really coming across like it was a major festival that, you know, that did kind of have stability and that would have a future. But
yeah, but keep in mind, stability means to have a lot more pop metal fans. You know what I mean? Like it's not like true metal fans, like the festivals in Europe. So like bands that are more saleable to like a wider demographic. And I don't know, it just works better in Europe. Yeah. Europeans just seem to be more hardcore, and it just works. And in Canada, it's hard to describe.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a reason why I went to Vakken for 15 plus years in a row, and then switched to Summer Breeze. Right. And we've done so much reporting on all the European festivals. Not that I want to shoot my foot with anything that's going to be based here, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm like tried and true to the core. I just want to hear it heavy. I don't want to hear radio friendly bullshit. I just want to hear heavy metal.
Well, a festival that I've been to here in Spain, we had Journey followed by Hatebreed. So
hey, I take that in a second. Come on. Well, especially if Steve Perry was there.
It wasn't Steve actually, but it was the lineup with Dean Castronova was still in the band at that point. And I think that they were smart in the sense that they didn't play any ballads. It was just all their more rocking songs.
Yeah.
Plenty of radio songs, and they knew how to feed into the crowd that was there. So
nice. This has been great, man. This has been awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate your time, and I, again, from the bottom of my heart, I do thank you for everything that you do with Bravewords, and I'm sure there are millions of other people that feel the same way. I mean, you've filled a gap for a lot of us over the years, and I hope that you continue to do so for many years to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just hope every one of the the watchers, the listeners are just like, I don't know, I'm pushing 60, and I can't even imagine that I'm still doing this. I'm pushing 60. Keep the faith. Eh?
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, man. All right. Thank you.
Cheers, all right. Man. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Awesome interview with Tim Henderson from Bravewords. again, I mentioned earlier during the interview that when I started out, the whole Bob Nalbandian thing. These are guys that I think similar to what he mentioned with looking back to the Yardbirds and looking back to the Kinks and looking back to all of these kinds of bands, where I think you really need to look back to a Tim Henderson and you need to look back to a Bob Nalbandian. And I know people don't appreciate Eddie Trunk for what he is now, but it's completely different to what he was back in the day. Eddie Trunk, for better, for worse, turned me on to so much music over the years, and similar to what Bravewords does now. I mean, being able to, even if it was once a week, being able to check out what the metal news was going on. I mean, that was just so great as a music nerd that I've always been. That to me just spoke volumes to me. So anyway, let's see what's going on in the chat here. Jeremy's talking about Bloodstock Open Air. Great here in the UK. Yeah, Jeremy is a huge proponent for Bloodstock. Always talking that up. It's obviously one of the premier festivals in the UK and can I still say in Europe? So yeah, Malcolm Dome, Mick Wall, and others at Sounds and Kerrang. Absolutely. Brad, Eddie did a lot for rock. Just wish he would stop yelling so much. Maybe his hearing is gone. Yeah, I think that's a New Jersey thing, personally. But I also, let's see, I want to send a shout out to a few people here. My patrons, of course, plenty of them are in the chat. We have Brad Dahl. We have Rob Rowe, who's officially become a patron as of yesterday. I will make sure that your t-shirt goes out shortly. Jeremy, who is in the chat, who I sent him, he's asked me to do a 7-inch of the week. And the 7-inch of this week, while I was doing my album of the week for Patreon, I remembered, I came across the Iron Maiden vinyl, the 7-inch picture disc that's basically a cutout of Eddie as Steve Harris playing the bass. And it was, I was like, this is perfect. I picked Iron Maiden last week, but I was like, well, perfect for this week to include as the 7-inch of the week. So I sent the video to Jeremy. He posted it. he posted it on his Twitter. So if people want to check it out, if you follow Jeremy on Twitter, you will be able to see the 7-inch of the week. So yeah, picture disc is amazing. It is, sir. That's why I wanted to share it. So there are others. Maybe for the next 2 weeks, I'll be able to. Let's see how much time I have. Let's see if I can pull out some interesting other 7-inch. Actually, one of them is a 10-inch. So there you go, Brad. If 7 isn't enough, you have. I've also got some good 10-inchers on the shelves as well. So, what else do we have going on here? I posted the new releases earlier today. Slim pickings as far as very few releases last week and this week. A lot of it has to do with the summer because the numbers do drop across the board on the internet and with albums in general. Things pick back up again in September when school actually starts up and people aren't in a vacation state of mind. And anything more than 6 is a waste. Okay. I don't want to quote Michael Scott from The Office, but anyway. So what I'm getting at is that there was a lot of reissues today, only a few new releases, a bunch of EPs, some compilations. There's still good music to be had, folks. So if you want to check out what's coming out and you don't know where to turn, you can go to MarsAttacksRadio.com, go to the new releases. There's new releases right there in the menu at the top of the screen or at the top of the page. You can click on that and it'll take you to the list of the last 10 weeks or so. You can click on the latest to check out what's come out. It's nothing like talking to someone and say, hey, whatever happened to that band? I lost track of them after the greatest hits they released in 1998. Yeah, they've only released 15 albums since. Good thing you're a huge fan. So, yeah. So, again, getting back to tonight's interview, my whole thing with doing these interviews are just interviewing people that I think are important to not only music, important to what I do, and can just give me a good conversation, and that's what I think we did tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I am actually off next week, so you could label me as a liar when I say every Fridays, or every Friday at, a certain time. For the first time in quite a few years, we're actually going on a family vacation for a few days. So I will be traveling back on Friday, and I don't know when I will get back. I am under the influence of the second COVID shot tonight. So this entire time I've been feeling flu-like symptoms, but I really wanted to do this interview, especially after last week and not having the guest show up. I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to talk to Tim, so it was awesome to have him on. And that is it, guys. We will be back in 2 weeks with our Motley Crue discussion with my patrons, which will be taking place from 6 p.m. Eastern on July the 23rd. If you are not a patron yet and want to be involved in that discussion for as little as $2 a month, you can get in. You can get in on that Motley Crue discussion. Brad, I've taken 2 today. The nurse said I could take one every 8 hours. So I took my second one at around 10 p.m., which was like 3 hours ago. I'm feeling a little better now, but still have the aches and pains. I'm hoping that, much like my wife, by the time tomorrow rolls around, I will be fine. So that is that. I appreciate you guys for joining me tonight, as always. Thank you for well, but okay, Rob Rowe paid, okay, so it's 1,000 milligrams every 8 hours. I took 650 because now we can only buy 650 without a prescription. So are you telling me that I should have taken a tablet and a half? Is that it? And to get back to Rob's point, you did the $10, but you get a t-shirt out of it. So there you go. That's one of the perks for the $10. For $2, the only additional perk is I'll mention that in a second, Brad. For $2, you just get the extra Victor M. Ruiz podcast, but with $5, you get the other bonus podcasts when I release them, and with 10, you get the t-shirt. So, and everything else before that. So there you go. If you just want the t-shirt and go down to $2 after a few months, I'm cool with that. I understand that not everyone can, because it's happened to myself. I've backed some people for a few months and just couldn't afford it anymore, or just realized that they weren't delivering anything. So I was like, this isn't money well spent. So, Brad, as far as that, for people that don't know, the medicine is subsidized over here. So yes, when you are in the States, when you are in the States and you move over here and you say, Can you give me a painkiller for that? No, you should be good with some ibuprofen and some, essentially what is Tylenol, which is what Brad just mentioned, the paracetamol. It's pretty much the same as far as I know, but I'm not a doctor like the good doctor is. And and we could actually purchase up to 1 milligram of ibuprofen up until a year ago, because since it is subsidized by the government didn't want to pay as much. So they started saying, well, people are getting hooked on 1 milligram or 1 gram of ibuprofen. And I'm thinking, yeah, I have a hard time believing that people are actually that people are actually getting hooked on ibuprofen and Tylenol, especially the regular stuff. So as the last 2 years have gone by, they've lowered the dosage and kept the price the same. Still cheaper than what it is in the States. So, but is what it is. Anyway, you guys are leaving me speechless. Again, I'm not holding a gun to anyone's head. If you guys want to jump up to 10, I'd be thrilled. I'd be ecstatic. But my folks bring me stuff from Costco. All my allergy medicine is from Costco. So don't think that I got left out, or when we take our trips to the States, we stock up. So there's plenty of stuff that isn't over the counter here, which just boggles my mind. But I can now have a pizza holiday. Yes, it will be interesting. I'm scared shitless to travel, but it is our opportunity to have a family holiday, and I hope that everyone stays safe. I hope we stay safe, and we will all be back here on the 23rd. I will be setting up $10 in the bottle of ibuprofen. There you go. I will be setting everything up so that everything is still working on Patreon. I will still be checking in throughout the week. So I'm big with going to theme parks. We've been wanting to go to what is the biggest theme park in Europe, which is about 90 minutes south of Barcelona in an area called, in Spanish, it is Tarragona. Tarragona is Tarragona in English. They have the biggest amusement park in Europe there. We haven't been able to go these last few years because we just couldn't afford it. And due to COVID and the park being closed down for some time, everything costs a third of what it did before. So as a result, we're going to Barcelona on Monday, hitting some of the major, tourist spots so that my boys can see the stuff. Then we're going to, it's called Port Adventure, I guess in English, Port Aventura, for 3 days. And the other cool thing, almost, it's port, not fort, but you almost had it. And then since we are, in the region of Tarragona. Tarragona has the second amount of Roman ruins in Spain. We can thank Napoleon for making sure that that city does not have the most, because they used to have the most. And as the French were retreating from Spain 200 years ago, they decided to start dynamiting all of the historic artifacts that they found along the way. So that happened to a lot of the Roman stuff that was there. There's still plenty to see, which I'm sure my kids will get a kick out of. I got a kick out of seeing that stuff when I went there. And we do get to go to the theme park, which I absolutely love as well. And I will be checking in from time to time as well. So I hope that that you guys have a great week. And yeah, Barcelona is great. Tim actually mentioned off air that he's been to Barcelona a few times, that he's absolutely loved it. It's a great place to go. Me and my wife used to go once a year, and after having kids and just through economic reasons, we haven't been able to go back. We haven't been back since I actually proposed to her in 2008. So it's overdue. So there you go. I actually proposed to my wife in Barcelona on a cruise ship there. But anyway, thanks for spending your time with me. And I appreciate once again. Oh, you've been there twice. Cool. And I will definitely check out the where is the sculpture, Jose? That is the for people in English speaking countries. What he's referring to was called Transor Z in English. It was a big Japanese anime thing back in the 70s. It was the first big anime to hop overseas. So anyway, thank you guys for spending Friday with me. Thanks to anyone that listens to this in the replay. I appreciate you guys being here. Like, share, tell your friends about all this. And okay, I'll look it up. And that is it. Thanks once again, guys. It was a blast speaking to you guys in the chat. It was a blast speaking to Tim. And it is always a blast, again, spending time with you guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. And oh yeah, we've got a new outro to the show. So I hope you guys like this. If you didn't catch the intro, watch the replay. The intro's completely different as well. But here's the new outro, guys. All right. We will see you next time right here on the Signals from Mars live stream.